Boutique vision or corporate legacy? Which one shapes the future?
Seems like you've got something to say.
I've got something. Yeah. I've always got something to say. There's what the industry think, and there's what the consumer thinks. And the consumer at the end of the day wants their house to be sold.
You know, we do everything for ourselves and we put ourselves first, where the client is not the first port of call, which is the wrong way about it.
The industry doesn't portray itself well.
So there's definitely more money in the luxury market in the self-employed role, but the amount of work that it takes to get there, people don't see that. I think it's very quick to sell the dream.
I think if your driver is money, then that's probably your first fault.
Basically, are there just too many B and C players out there in estate agency and not enough A?
And you are giving it in hands that some of these people have no clue what they're doing, right? And they're losing you tens of thousands, and in our industry at the high end, hundreds of thousands.
And change is inevitable these days, isn't it?
You have to, because the people who don't change are stuck in the past. They'll die off in a few years.
So we've heard some news this week in the market and in the industry press about the changes that the government are suggesting they may make. Sellers taking more responsibility for the costs. What are your thoughts? Hi, it's Matt Giggs and welcome to the next episode of Estate Agent Showdown with my two expert guests on the panel today, Marie Fritz, MD of ByDesign in Oxfordshire and Northamptonshire. Is that correct?
Yep.
Fantastic. And David Powell, the CEO of the Andrews Property Group. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
3.5 hours. That's commitment. An hour. You could have walked here, Marie. You know, it's so simple. But look, thanks for joining me today. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Are you looking forward to it?
Very much so, Matt.
Okay, we've got lots to talk about today. And I'm going to kick off with just the first question, which is boutique vision or corporate legacy? Which one shapes the future of estate agency in the UK? Who would like to go first?
I'll jump in. Shall I jump in?
Yeah,
I'll take
sure.
that one.
Seems like you've got something to say.
I've got something.
Yeah.
I've always got something to say, whether or not it's worth listening to. I think it's a combination of both. And that's almost a get out slightly. I think there's a lot we are learning with boutique agency and the way they are moving perhaps a bit quicker, easier to mobilise. And I think, but there's something in the corporate structure that has some value. So for me, we'll probably go for a period of merging the two and coming out with probably what's right for the customer at the end of the day.
Okay.
I agree. There is a space for both. And not every agent wants to do both. You know, not every agent is tailored to be a self-employed agent or wants to. And not every self-employed agent, well, actually most self-employed agents couldn't do the employed version because we don't like being told what to do or whatever it is.
No, I can't imagine that,
But
Marie.
there is a space for both.
There
There
is,
are
yeah.
clients who are attracted to either or. And, you know, there's enough business for everyone to have both there.
Do you think it's being portrayed that way? In other words, do you feel like it's being made to look like one's better than the other out there in the marketplace for maybe agents to observe?
There's two sides to this. There's what the industry think, and there's what the consumer thinks. And the consumer at the end of the day wants their house to be sold. And they might get attracted to some of the marketing more from the boutique side. I think the industry doesn't portray itself well with a lot of internal arguments, and I think we'll be.
I think we're on the same
Yeah,
page
yeah,
there.
no.
I always remind me. It takes me back to when I started, and it was always corporate versus independent.
Yeah.
And it got pretty boring, and the customer very rarely cares about that argument, and I don't think they care whether or not you're self-employed or employed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, your customer wants their house to be sold. So I agree with the sentiment here that there is something for everyone, and there's enough business for everyone as well.
So from an internal perspective, the arguments don't really help.
I don't think it's great for our industry. It's
No.
not. I mean, if you very rarely look at other industries and they're arguing over the right model.
Yeah.
You know, they're more about, well, what have I got and what does the customer want? In our world, we seem to be arguing about the wrong things, I think.
Is it taking the focus away from the right things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But that's also why we're seen so badly, is because we're seen as, you know, we do everything for ourselves and we put ourselves first, where the client is not the first port of call, which is the wrong way about it. And that's why we're seen as, you know, we're compared to politicians, and we all remember during
We're just
COVID.
above, I think, in one of those
during
polls.
COVID, when Boris Johnson was compared to an estate agent, we thought, oh God, that's not good.
I don't think that's improving at the minute, is it?
No, but then you do see it on social media and LinkedIn and all that, where self-employed agents, there are some brands out there, and it's constantly, we are, this is the only way to do it. This is the best way to do it. Come join my team. And I think there's a lack of respect for other ways to do things because we don't always know best.
Why do you think they do that?
Oh, they just want to build that team and earn more money.
Oh, well, there you go.
The simple of it, isn't it?
Sorry, I knew the answer to that question. But I think the funny thing is that when you rewind and go back to what we're both saying, or all three of us are saying, it's what does the consumer want and need?
Yeah.
Do you find the self-employed model is, how do I put this, is portrayed in the right way? Because actually there is a lot of selling of the model, not the actual work that's involved. So
yeah,
in other words,
I think the selling of it is the get rich quick, right? That's what they sell with this self-employed, like, oh, look at all this money you can make, get rich quick. They don't see the graph behind it. And like, yes, okay, you can make a lot more money than the corporate side. And I mean, I started Connells long ago. I've done both. So there's definitely more money in the luxury market in the self-employed role. But the amount of work that it takes to get there, people don't see that. And then they go, oh, she's lucky. It's like, well, it's funny how hard work is luck. They go hand in hand. So I think it's very quick to sell the dream. And it's just when the reality hits of how much hard work it is, then a lot of people don't see it.
You're in the prime market.
Yeah.
So you're in that sort of higher upper quartile, should we call it. It takes even longer there, you could argue, to get traction.
Yeah, because people need to trust you.
Well, that market's been, I don't know how you're seeing it. There's a lot of talk around the fact that you could list 10 houses over £1 million and you might only complete on 2 or 3 of those. So there's a lot of work that goes in. I mean, the rewards when they come in
are great.
But it takes a lot longer to get there.
Yeah.
Because the market operates at a different speed. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Because if you're selling a 3-bed semi, you're kind of looking around who's got the boards on this street, and there's, 10 boards on the street. You go with that person. They've got the clients who are looking for that, the investors, whatever it is. But our homes are so unique at the top end that it does take the right buyer. And there's a lot of intricate pieces of these covenants and the land and the this and the that. And it can get quite tedious with the sales process in terms of the legals. It can take a bit of time to get the right buyer if it's a really unique property. And sometimes there's so little comparisons in terms of price point. Not that we're guessing, we are going with, I've been doing this for a long time. I can kind of go in and go, okay, it should be around this price point. But until we put it on the market, we don't know what the buyers are going to think about that price point. But if you have a 3-bed semi and there's, 5 on the road that sold for $320, then you're not going to go ask for $380. You kind of know exactly where you land. So I think there's a lot more time in the upper end because there's a lot more variables, I think.
I think that's fair. And added on that, you touched on get rich quick. I think if your driver is money, then that's probably your first fault. I think you've really got to look at the why in it. Everyone goes to work to earn money. You can't hide away from that. That's just fact. We've all got bills to pay, but money cannot be your driver. And if it is, you're driving for the wrong things. We talked about consumer briefly before. What does the consumer want? That's what you got to be driving to deliver. And I think that the more you can make you drive something that is not financial, you're starting to solve solutions and not just driving for greed. And I think that's probably where some of these things will alter as models develop, I would think.
Yeah, because we've talked about commission breath, haven't we? The client can absolutely smell it from a mile away when that person just wants the money, don't care about them. And those are not the people who do well. The people who do well, whether it's corporate, whether it's self-employed, is the people who go above and beyond to help. And you can tell that they care. And I always used to be told, like, you get involved way too much. I'm thinking, no, that's why my clients choose me. That's why they love me, because I make it so personal. And yes, that means that when they're stressed, I'm stressed. When, the ups and downs, I get those too. But then you do see those agents, again, from self-employed and corporate, who check in, check out. And it's like, okay, my day's done. I don't want to hear about you. I don't want to talk to you. And they just don't care. And that's the problem.
Why do you think they don't care?
Oh, God. can of worms there. If we look at the corporate side of things, there's a very high turnover volume, and it's probably
in terms of staff.
In terms of staff, yeah.
Okay.
And that's probably, again, the get rich quick thing. And they put 60 hours a week and they're not making very much money or whatever it is. They're starting low. And so they're like, oh, I'm not going to do this. There's too much hassle, too much work.
Do you think, though, because you were at Connells, you said?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't about Connells, but I was also in the corporate world. I was on that career path. Where your background?
No, not Connells, although I did have 8 weeks there. So I've touched it briefly.
Let's not go in. Well, actually, we could dive into that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Why is that?
but the big attraction 20 years ago was a career path.
Yeah.
And you were going on this career path and you could go up the ladder. That was a huge part of the appeal to the corporate world. It just feels like socially that's less desirable for people these days because actually it's harder to maybe manage people. Maybe it's harder to work with dashboards, spreadsheets, and being hit over the head with KPIs. Maybe. I'm just making a suggestion. And if you're in the corporate world watching this, you may want to challenge me on that. What are your thoughts, guys?
I think there's a number of things at play here. And I think one for me in the estate agency, I've been in it for 27 years. And you could join as a very young person, work very hard, possibly missing some education, but you could find a way to earn good money. And I think certainly over the 27 years, what I've seen is overheads have increased quite significantly. National living wage has certainly come
insurance,
up. National
everything.
insurance. And the commissions haven't necessarily grown in the same way.
They've come down, haven't they?
So you've had a real squeeze in the middle, which means now you've got that battle between the basics you pay affects the commissions you pay. And I think it's harder now for someone with 2-3 years experience to earn what they might have been able to earn relative terms 20 years ago. And the knock-on effect, you're asking them to really join a career and stay there for a sustainable period of time in a world where, they're watching social media, they're seeing people earn vast sums of money very quickly.
Yeah, they're being distracted away from it.
And you know, in a large part of agency across the country, they're earning a national living wage basic for 40 hours a week, plus their commission. So you are asking people to hang on in there for a longer period, and some might not get there.
The ones who do is because they love it.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. The ones who do it for money, those are the ones who turn out because you're not making the money. The ones who love it are the ones who graft and stay. But then I could also say the same about the self-employed role, is that the amount of turnover there is extremely high too. Because if you can't make it work, you're commission only. If you're not, and it doesn't mean you're not good enough or what, it's not working for some reason. You're going to leave because within the first year, if you're not making any money, like you can't sustain that forever. And then you go back to the employed role. So there's, in both sections, there's quite a lot of turnover.
So there's quite a lot of work to do in both.
Oh yeah. Is it, one's not easier than the other.
Basically, are there just too many B and C players out there in estate agency and not enough A?
I think there are too many. I think when you look at it, it's that the market is very diverse. You've got 24,000 estate agency offices.
Too many.
It's too many in the sense it's very difficult to control something. Even if you take the big 10, the big 15 estate agents, you've still got a vast majority of single offices or single individuals working under a brand, whichever way they come. And I think that's quite a hard field to play in. And again, when you compare us to other industries, that would be quite unusual. Yeah, if you go to the hotel market, you generally got your big brands that control most of the market. We don't have that in agency. So trying to change the world to make it better for young people to come in is quite slow progress, I think. It's really turning a big Titanic.
Is it less? It's just less attractive?
For me, I would always say it's attractive because I'm an estate agent at heart. But I think there's something we need to do to make it more attractive. And I think, I've raised it with some of the organisations within the industry. Can we make something for people to join? We talk about conferences quite a bit in our world. It's the same people that turn up to the same conferences. Can we have a conference that our junior negotiators can turn up to, somewhere where they can really feel embraced? Something where actually if they can do some training amongst industry known brands, be it portals or something under Property Marked or the like of, would give them something to actually feel they're part of and something longer term. We've got to find a solution.
I think it's also we really do need to be like, I don't know what the word is, certified or whatever. Qualified, thank you. Because like even in Canada, you have to do a certification to become an agent. So people look at us
I think
there.
that's part of this new reform, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let's
what a great link into it, Matt. It is.
Because that would help the amount of us, right? Because that's the thing, we are inundated with estate agents, but the amount of properties aren't going up as high as the amount of estate agents are. So then you've got all these agents where 10 years ago, the average fee, I think, was like 1.6 or 1.8%. And that's got down to now 1%. But it's because there's so many of us, and the only way that they think they can fight is by lowering the fee and overvaluing. But if there was less agents, but more qualified agents, this is your life's asset. This is your biggest investment. And you are giving it in hands that some of these people have no clue what they're doing, right? And they're losing you tens of thousands. And in our industry at the high end, hundreds of thousands by being in the wrong hands. So I think if there was something to have less estate agents, more qualified agents, because there's enough business for everyone, but not when there's just, somebody waking up tomorrow, starting an agency who's never done it.
Agreed.
And then doing 0.5% to get the gist.
Well, I heard someone saying that they spoke to someone in a particular organisation, and their words to their team was, get them on at any cost, get their listing at any cost. In other words, what you've just alluded to, which is low fee, high price, which are the only two strategies which have been knocking around for decades. And I think as agents, we should know that better and how to combat that and educate that better away from the consumer, because it's the fastest way to lose money and equity. And there's a lot of estate agents out there at the minute who are reducing prices left, right and centre. So they're releasing a lot of equity from the market for clients who think that they're getting a good deal because they're paying 0.5%. Work that one out.
It's completely...
Work that one out. Just coming away from that. But the A players, will the B and C's get cut out? We'll come on to the subject of reform. But I just want to keep on the subject of A players. Do you think AI is going to be for A players, and will it replace the Bs and the Cs?
Yeah, for me, and it's probably a long-term period because nothing happens quick in our world, but I think we will end up with less players in our game because I think the bar will raise over a period of time. I think the cost of operating will raise as well, so that has an impact. I think AI tech always will make a play, and I think we're probably entering a period where we're going to have the fastest change of tech the industry has probably experienced ever. And yeah, we talk about it. What does our tech look like in 2 years' time? I don't think we actually know. I think it's going to change in as quickly as 12 months, and AI is obviously a driver of this. So I think that will present challenges.
Because you've got how many in your group?
We've got 40 offices in our group.
And how many agents would you say, roughly?
In terms of frontline team, we're about 250 staff.
How do you, as a big organisation, because that is a big organisation, especially in our industry, if you cut out the large corporates, that's a big company. How do you approach change of that nature?
Yeah, with a lot of consideration. A lot of consideration.
Big question, sorry.
It is. I think over the last few years, we've very much changed the way we look at most things within the group. And change is, we have a change program. So when we consider a change, it gets aired with quite a wide group of our senior leaders from various different departments, because change doesn't just start in the front office. It's going to affect marketing. It's going to have a knock-on impact to compliance. It's going to have a knock-on impact to our finance team somewhere. So we embrace all. We make sure we take feedback from the front line so they are buying into it, because delivering change when your front line don't want it will never take off. So we probably spend more time on the consideration, less time on the implementation. But by doing so, the implementation is generally smoother.
Okay. So are you excited by that change, just quickly?
I'm excited by any change that progresses the industry and ultimately makes transactions a little bit cleaner.
I was just going to say, that's the one thing that I do prefer from the self-employed model is when there's a change that I want to make, I implement it right away. I call David, hey, what do you think about this? Yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. So there's a lot less red tape. There's a lot less board members to have to please. And so that I do quite enjoy because it can, like any change in big companies, it takes a long time from, like you said, just having to think about the whole process to then implement it, to then train your staff on it, to then, it's a 10-part series. It just takes too long.
And I think, just to add on to that, you've got different teams at play, haven't you? So I guess if you look into your world there, you're not worrying about a large team of relatively junior people in places, or new recruits as well, that lack of experience piece. So you've got to be considerate to that. The pro to it is we've got different minds thinking about that change rather than a fee earner. So when we sit there as a fee earner and say, we're going to make this change because it's going to be beneficial, what we often have over here is, hold on a second, have you considered this? Well, no, I haven't, because I'm not thinking about the marketing piece. I just know this is going to make the job easier for these people. So there's a real flip and contrast between the two, but ultimately everyone gets there eventually in some shape or form.
And change is inevitable these days, isn't it?
Have to, because the people who don't change are stuck in the past. They'll die off in a few years, and you've seen that. I don't actually know what the number is, but I do remember feeling quite what's the word? I just couldn't believe the amount of estate agents that closed in the last few years. Like, it just blew my mind to see how many hundreds of agents and agencies had closed down.
There's a lot.
So many. And it's because if you're not moving with the times, if you're not taking it, and that's the thing, AI is not going to replace our job, because people need that human interaction. But if you utilize AI, you're going to outperform the agent who doesn't.
For sure.
So you do need
there's
to
a lot of B and
times.
C. I think it's going to replace a lot of B and C agents, those lower performers, and B and C businesses. The businesses that aren't adapting, that aren't innovating, that aren't changing with the times. They're in a massive threat, because just looking at what you've done in the last couple of years, starting a fresh new business in an area, you're able to get reach and traction a lot quicker now with the likes of social media, with the likes of using a network or whatever it is that you decide to invest in. That a lot of if you go back in history in our industry in this country, it would have been established brands have got the advantage.
Yeah.
And I think they're maybe more at a disadvantage because it takes a lot longer to move through change, maybe. We're going to touch on that reform. So we've heard some news this week in the market and in the industry press and in the world of UK politics about the changes that the government are suggesting they may make. That hasn't been announced.
Drip feeding it before the November.
They love the classic
budget.
Drip feed, just tease it in. About the sellers, I'm going to pick that part up first. Sellers taking more responsibility for the costs of the transaction. What are your thoughts?
I'm not against that. I think a lot of what's come out this week as a headline is relatively positive. It's the detail that we're probably more concerned about. And if sellers are paying money to, and they almost are as an industry, I think we've moved a little bit over the last few years. Anyway, home information packs, going back a few years, would have started this. But now it's not unusual for clients to invest in some of their marketing, or we've got AML where clients are paying for. So we're starting to see a behaviour where clients are paying money up front that never used to happen 15 years ago. And I think, look, if properties are coming to the market and they are ready and that information is up front, it's more transparent, then I think that's got to be better for the buyer. I think it's better for the seller as well, because there's no point taking a transaction 8 weeks down the line for someone to fall out of it because you've got something you already
there was
knew.
A covenant on,
Absolutely. So I'm all for that. I think it's just the detail, and it's got some challenges in terms of how that rolls out in terms of the legality of lifetime of searches would be one, that if we're going to have upfront surveys, great. How long does that survey actually last for? Because if you're on the market for 18 months.
Yeah,
did you listen to the last podcast?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
I listened to it yesterday.
We predicted this conversation was coming, but we were talking about upfront surveys. Now, surveys are, like you say, a window of use, if you like, or and the seller would be responsible for maybe making sure the works are carried out and that those things are allayed before a buyer comes to the party. But it feels like that's quite a positive thing from where I stand in terms of having a property that's ready, more ready.
Yeah, there's a few points to that to look at. And first is, like you said, it's been free to list your house for years and years and years and years, which means it brings a lot of time wasters, a lot of people going, let's test the market. And if I can get £200,000 more than what it's worth, I'll sell. That I don't want that on my books. I'm wasting money, time, resources on you. You'll never move. It'll never sell. So if a seller is not willing to invest, so for me in the upper end of the market, I've got a marketing contribution, minimum £1,000 plus VAT, goes up to £1,500 plus VAT, depending on, the size of the property, what I need. And that is just a tiny little bit of what we spend. But for me, if a vendor is not willing to put £1,000 down on their largest asset to show commitment to me, I'm not showing commitment to you by spending thousands and thousands and thousands on the marketing. So I never have pushback from that, extremely rarely.
Does that just come off your end fee?
No, they pay it right away.
So it's that and that.
Yeah, but then I don't have a tie-in period for my contract. So, I'm not tying you in for 20 weeks. If I'm not doing my job, you should be able to go somewhere else, right? I don't lose clients, because I know I can do my job and they trust me. But then I do have to have some form of commitment from you in another way. And if you're going to be putting some money on the line, then it shows me, okay, you're committed. And I have had some people go, I'm not paying anything. I don't even know if I want to sell. I'm like, great, you're not my client. Go to the free agent who won't charge anything, who will put your house on that £200,000 more. But I'm not for you.
Yeah.
So I think if the sellers have to invest in things, that's going to help agents get better clients. And then the second part is actually having the information. Like you said, the fact that somebody can pull out the day before exchange, have no legal ramifications, completely broken in my head. But if you don't know about this covenant that says that, I don't know, you can't have chickens on your land, and you literally have 20 chickens that you're bringing and you want land because you want your chickens, you're going to pull out. And I use that scenario because I have had a property where a half of the garden, you weren't allowed to keep chickens on that half.
Really?
So at the viewing, I would ask, like, do you have chickens? And they're like, yeah, we do. I'm like, you'd have to keep them on this side because for some reason the covenant says you can't on that side.
So you seem to go a little bit over and above with making sure that you get as much information at the start.
Yes. So
because I imagine doing a viewing at that end of the market is time consuming.
You need to know the house to sell the house. Like you need to know what the ins and outs are. I had a house in a chain where Oxford University owned a piece of land in front of their house. So that piece of land was leased. But then there were so many covenants on it that you would never build on it. But then what happens if the Oxford University take away that lease? Then you don't own the front part of your house. Like there's so many things. But so for me, I get all of my sellers legally ready before they even go to the market. So I've got a lady, she used to be a solicitor. She left to create this own company of herself. I can share her name if anybody needs this because I pay £100 and she contacts my sellers. She gets all their protocol forms filled out. She helps get all the right documentation, electrical forms, all these things. Planning, blah, blah, blah. She sends me a pack. I have it all there and then I can launch it. I can do viewings. I know. And the thing is, you ask sellers, do you have any covenants? And they go, I don't know. And then you get the pack and there's 10 and you're like, these 4 don't matter, but these 3 really do matter. So, at the end of the day, if I can launch my properties with that, it also means that when I have a sale agreed, the draft contract is out within 24 hours. Just saved 4 weeks. So for me, it's all about doing that and making sure things go much, much faster with less fall through. Because if in 2 months they figure out they can't have their chickens on that land, they're going to pull out. And then where am I left?
Exactly. So just coming back to that, so that first part that we were talking about, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
It's only a good thing. The other part that I know you've this is actually separate to this reform actually, is the way stamp duty is being paid. Mm-hmm. Now you had a different idea, but it sounds to me through the drip feed of what might be coming that there's going to be a property tax. Now what they're suggesting, I think, is over £500,000 for a property to have like a property tax. And what do you know about that? And what do you think?
The property tax, in terms of what they're floating, is effectively an annual tax on properties that sell for over £500,000. Or I guess it's vague. Is it properties that have sold for over £500,000 or properties that are worth £500,000? Take you back to days slightly before myself, window tax. People start breaking up their windows. Yes. Do people start knocking down outbuildings to try and make their property less valuable to fall below the tax? I think the danger with targeting a part of the market, one might argue stamp duty targets parts of the market anyway because people pay different rates, but I think targeting such a market in that way is going to have a knock-on impact naturally. That market will slow, which will impact the market below it, and so on and so forth. That would be my fear. So I again, lacking a huge amount of detail, but based on a tax purely on properties because they're worth £500,000, I think is relatively dangerous for the whole market.
Yeah, I have a different point of view. Because, so in Canada, you don't have stamp duty, but you have yearly property tax. And it means that the property market moves quicker, smoother, allows people to buy easier. So if, and at my houses that I'm selling, I had one, their stamp duty was £160,000. And you think, that's a lot of money to be putting on a property. So what if they didn't have that 160K to put, but every year they paid $8,000? I mean, personally, I'd rather do that. I'd rather pay the $8,000 every year because I can put that aside. I can allocate it just like another tax. But that 160K, I mean, what can you do with that money? You can renovate the property. You can buy a bit bigger. You can put in investments and stocks and shares and make some money there. And, so the fact that stamp duty is so high does restrict the market. And if you look at countries who don't necessarily have that stamp duty, but they have a monthly year, I don't know how they're going to do it, it actually turns quicker.
Because the question back on that, which is quite interesting to hear with Canada, but is the tax on every price bracket?
I don't actually know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually know.
I think fundamentally that's the difference for myself. If the tax was on every bracket, then I think the argument changes slightly. If you're just taxing a certain market, because what we don't want to do is create a market that stops people from downsizing, and that's part of the argument. The
lower end would still have that stamp duty.
The lower end, absolutely. So, well, they haven't said that. So they're talking about bringing in an annual property tax for 500. They're not saying what they're going to do with the rest of the stamp duty. No. So one assumes they're abolishing that piece because they haven't referred to it, but that could be a terrible assumption as well, and they might leave it there.
Yeah, because they're still wanting to keep the stamp duty for second properties, irrelevant of the price. Yeah. So maybe if they do, and I see what you mean, because I think in Canada it's every price point. I don't think there's a cutoff. I think it's everyone. There's just no stamp duty. Because my parents didn't understand it, and they're like, "What do you mean? You have to pay all that money up front?"
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how lenders look at that. Make the assumption that it comes in, and there's an annual tax that you pay. How do lenders then look at that when you come to remortgage? Because that's a financial commitment that you've got. It's no different to a car loan or something else at that point. So that's one for them to answer.
I think it'll also make people sell less regularly and stay in their properties longer, because what she's talking about is over 500,000 would only come into play when you buy. So if you've already paid your stamp duty, you already own that £1 million house, you wouldn't have any yearly tax. So how that person who may have upsized or downsized, whatever it is, in a year, they'll probably stretch that out to 5-6 years because they're like, hey, I don't have to pay that extra tax. Yeah. So it will stall some parts of the market. But then I do see some positive to making moving more accessible, because a lot of first-time buyers as well, like they don't have that extra 30K of stamp duty. Okay, first-time buyers are different in our worlds, but some of my clients, like they just don't have that extra 30, 40. And if it's a second property, my goodness, the 3 to 5% jump that's happened, like that was not fair in itself. Like that is such a big chunk of money. So I think there's pros and cons to both, but like you said, it depends on how they're going to do it.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we can all agree if they abolish it, that would be everyone's choice.
That was your original angle.
Well, my original angle went. So I sat down. It was probably February, March when we were coming to the end of the stamp duty holiday, and you just seen the immense pressure on estate agents, conveyancers, mortgage brokers, and the customer. Everyone under a huge amount of pressure just to make a deadline.
Happened in 2021 or whenever.
It's been repetitive now for a few times, because the government will switch on stamp duty and play it as a bit of a tool to boost the economy as and when they see fit.
Bit of a band-aid though, isn't it?
Really so eradicating it, great. I think the government are in a bit of a dark hole. I mean, when we talk about 12 billion a year in tax, not all of that from property. It's about 3/4 from property. If they eradicate it, where do they get it from somewhere else? And I think there's a reasonable argument that the uplift in economy, if you got rid of it, would cover it. I think that argument is quite difficult in a relatively flat market in a world where growth is quite challenging. And if the market goes backwards, that argument starts to disappear. So I started to petition, along with the team at Andrews, to spread the cost of stamp duty over a period of time. So almost back to your point, it'll almost act as a property tax to a point. But my view is it's attached to the property, and if you sell the property, you've got to pay that off before you move, so the stamp duty is cleared. And largely, it takes away. Most people sell their house, not all, but the vast majority will sell their house, and out of the equity of their current home, they will use that to pay their move-in fees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which means they're effectively adding the cost of their stamp duty onto the mortgage and paying interest on it for 25 years.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem to be friendly. And to your point of first-time buyers, London particularly, first-time buyers may well be buying over 500, don't get the stamp duty relief. So they're sitting in rented longer, saving money, rather than being able to move on to the
Like
market.
a vicious
Being in
cycle.
the market.
Yeah, it's just a complete cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of costs potentially incurred by the client. Costs to running businesses in this the whole world, especially in the UK. Running a business has never been more costly. Finding the right people, trying to find the right people. What's that like in your areas of the world? And we'll start actually with yourself on that, Marie. Who are you looking for? What do you look for in your A-player agents?
That's the thing. There's very different levels of people, and some people like to go to an office, have their 8 till 4, whatever it is. But the agents that do well in the self-employed role, they need to be hungry. They need to be working constantly, especially those first 3, 4, 5 years. Like, you will need to scale your life back to get the life you want. If you're not willing to scale your life back for 3, 4 years, you don't deserve the life you want. That's just kind of the mindset of a self-employed role. Doesn't matter if it's a state agency or starting a business, and tech doesn't matter. The amount of time you're going to have to put in to build that is immense. But for me, I've met some great agents in high street agencies, and I'm thinking your potential is just, your wings are being clipped. You could be incredible. You care, but you have too much on your plate. You have too many vendors. You're being spread thin. If you only had 4 or 5 to deal with at the high end, you can make more money, have a better work-life balance, have more time for your kids. You've got it. But they can't make the jump from the employed to the self-employed because of the money.
For the first year?
Yeah, the interviews that I've done, I've said to them, realistically, kind of like, you'd hope to get paid between 6 to 8 months. But realistically, you should have enough money to support yourself for a year. And that, I've had people, they've remortgaged to take some equity out and to live off that. Some have partners who can help sustain it. Some have savings. Some have made the jump and taken a loan out. You need to figure out how to do it, but none of it is easy. So the ones who are willing to take that jump, they know that they have to make it work because there's no plan B.
Do you think that's really important, rather than someone that can afford to take the jump and they're not looking over their shoulder?
So I can't remember which podcast it was, but I was listening to it, and they said the most successful people are the people who didn't have a plan B. Because if you do, you go in. Yeah, if you go in and you're like, I could always go back to that job. It's okay if it doesn't work out. Those don't usually, I'll say usually, because sometimes you have the exception, they don't usually tend to work out. No. It's the people who go, holy shit, I need to feed my kids. I need to keep the roof over my head. I've got literally nothing else. I don't care how I'm going to make it work. I'm going to find a way. And that mindset, that's dangerous. That is those people who go and who will break the ceiling and who will make it. But of those people I've spoken to in the corporate world, I know they'd be amazing, but they just said, Marie, I just don't have the capacity to be almost a year without the pay.
So most people live in their means.
Yeah, paycheck to paycheck. And they said, I know I'm not making what I'm worth. I know I'm not making great money, but at least it's constant money. So I'd rather make less and constant than change my life, but take the risk of not getting paid for a year. So it's that's the problem.
And kind of flicking over to your model, because would you say yours is more mid-market?
We are, yeah. So mid-market and traditional estate agency. Employed. Every one of our estate agents is employed, and letting agents. And
are they on a commission, or is it a team?
They are. No. So in the sales side, they're all on commission. Individual commission. The managers will take a benefit of how their offices perform. But very strongly connected to the performance of their team. But the negotiators, the valuers, will be paid on their results, and their results only.
And how are you finding attracting and retaining?
A lot better. I mean, we picked up the business 2022, and we had a 52% attrition rate at that point.
I remember you saying.
And now, to be fair, that was impacted largely by some of the challenges the company was going through as well. And we've managed to get that down this year. We're trading at about 18% as an attrition rate.
retention versus turnover stuff?
Absolutely. So we're finding people are staying longer. Now, I think that's partly because the company is now performing where it wasn't before. So you generally only want to play for a team that's winning. So we've helped there. We've spent an awful lot of time on culture within our business, learning development as well, and ensuring that our teams have got the tools. Our models are quite different. We've got to set that out because we're taking staff that won't have 20 years experience, 10 years experience. So it's given them the tools to grow. And look, if they move on and become their own business and under self-employed or any other model, then great. They're taking that platform.
Do you see like a huge amount of benefit to someone being around people day to day?
Yeah.
So that feed off the energy, if you like.
Yeah, we
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, largely. I mean, probably the best example to that is, unfortunately, we were supposed to move into our new head office February this year, and due to a flood, that's been put off. And that's meant that our central teams have had to work hybrid, part from home, sometimes in an office, and you miss that collaboration piece. Everyone's sitting in their silos. It's harder to get people together. It's harder to make those small conversations happen, which then generally inform the bigger ones. So absolutely. And going back a few years, the company sent their property management to work from home as well. And that's quite difficult because you learn from the people that's sitting around you, just listening to those little conversations. So in particularly property management, in a role that can be very difficult at times, each scenario can be slightly different. You do miss that training piece, I think, by not having people around you.
I agree with that, yeah. Because I would never suggest anyone starts their real estate journey in the self-employed model. Like, that's not where you start. You need to start in the corporate world where you're in an office, where you bounce from people. And like you said, you hear the conversations. That's where you learn. Like I did about 2 years in Connells. And although it was extremely hard work, I'm grateful for that because that's where I learned everything. I still had my hot box and I, didn't have a computer on the desk. We did it the old school way. And I just, without that.
How many different offices did you work in?
Just the one, because then I got pregnant and got married, and I thought, I'm not working 60 hours a week with a child to make the money I'm making, and it just didn't work out in terms of that. So which is why when I joined another luxury high-end brand back in COVID times, I missed a estate agency, and that's why I jumped at it, because I thought, I could work around the kids. I don't need to be in an office. So it doesn't...
It really does appeal to that part of the market.
Yeah.
Like you've just said, yours offers something different to people as well. And it's the best of each, really.
But yeah,
which is why I brought you on, because, these guys, the profits go to charity.
Yes, some of.
Making me look bad.
Where do yours go, Marie?
Holidays.
Hey, we all have holidays as well. But yes, a share of our profits go to the charity.
What charity is it?
We're owned by a charity. So the founder, Cecil Jackson Cole, created Andrews back in 1946. So we're 80 years next year. And before his passing, he created Andrews Charitable Trust. So the company would be passed to the trust. The company was only ever formed to create revenue to put into charitable means. Oh. So that carries on. So the share of the profit goes into the charity. The rest of it goes to the people and reinvestment back into the business to keep that turning, to make sure that we got sustainable profit into the charitable arm. So,
fascinating, isn't it? There you go. Well, I'm going to jump back into some agency detail now and talk about fees. We talk about fees?
Sure.
We love fees, don't we? One of the questions I had is about value sort of creation. What truly justifies a higher fee? So I think the industry's been, we alluded to it already, addicted to discounts.
But I don't know why. This is your largest asset and you want the cheapest agent, the cheapest solicitor, the cheapest everything to make your life as miserable as possible for the 8 months to a year. That's some of these people it's taking. It's like, it's just crazy.
But what justifies a higher fee? Marketing, service, results, or trust?
All of the above.
You're not allowed to say
all of the above.
Yeah. Which is more,
5 of
would
the
you
4
say?
you
What is the
mentioned.
most kind of important value creation? Service. Okay. Why?
Because I think, if you have that trust and somebody knows that you are doing everything possible, like even if one of my houses isn't selling and we know it should be, it's priced correctly, it's all that, They will never leave me, knock on wood, but I have never had a client leave me for another agent because they trust me. They know we're doing everything possible. So that service, that trust, all of that retains clients more than anything else. So, if
your fees, what are your fees?
2.5%.
2.5%. Okay. And you would say the justification is the fact that you can literally personalize that experience and that service.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a little bit of everything, because you can't go take pictures with your iPhone and say, but I'm great, you're going to love me, and it's 2.5. Like, it doesn't go hand in hand. So you do have to meet the kind of presentation and the marketing and the exposure that they expect, as well as those types of clients. But if you can have all of that, I mean, I've gone to some people's doors and they are so loyal to their agent, and the pictures are shit. There's no video. It is such terrible marketing. And they're like, no, but I trust him. And I'm going, okay, I do understand it, but that's not what's going to sell your house. So it's a bit of everything.
Okay.
But the trust is a big thing.
Well, I say it's very difficult to not win an instruction if you've built trust.
Yeah, but it's one before you get to the front door.
It is. It's just, I think the how social media has kind of helped gear people up in agency to get in a business off the ground a lot quicker as well.
Yeah, know, like, and trust.
Discounting in fees and fee justifications or creation. What do you feel is the most important thing?
Service. I think, to add on to that, people are looking for a result, and they want to move. So a nice service will be great, but a nice service with no result is not what the customer is after. But customers do look for trust. I think that's massively important. We work largely on transparency. Tell them everything, because you're better off to start from that point. There are no surprises. But we've got 40 different high streets. So in some respects, we look at that, we've got 40 micro markets. In some high streets, we'd be the market leader. In some, we'd be bottom of the pile. That's the nature of a group in some respects. So each one's got a slightly different challenge. And we will look at that office by office. So some will be trying to build market share. That might be important in that marketplace. I mean, we operate in very different markets. Ours is volume more so. And then some other areas, it's more about just really building on the service they're providing and making sure they're improving that, which then will help maintain their market share. Market share is a metric we're often driven to, but it's not the most important one. Market share of number of exchanges is the important one. How much revenue does that give you? And in our case, how much do we then get to pass on to the charity from there? So I appreciate we couldn't have everything, but it is a bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, it does take that mix, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think to add to it, and where we started the conversation, one thing that property agents are really bad at is explaining to why they are worth more money.
Let's get into
that. It's very difficult to differentiate yourselves. So we might sit there and say, look, we're charity owned, and part of your fee will go to a charity, and that would be a USP. No one else can compete with that. They can give part of their fee to a charity; they're not owned by a charity. But so there is that piece, but that's great for the clients that see that as a value. And if they don't, they might prefer to see more of their property on social media if that's their value. So each client's slightly different, but as an industry, we do find it really difficult to illustrate our worth, because we're all trustworthy.
Do you think
and there's so many. There's so many.
Do you think it's harder in the volume market than it is in the premium market? I'll come to you in a second on fee value.
Personally, I'd probably say that the challenges are different, but equally probably both have difficulties in it. I think in the mass market, we've probably got different types of competitors. In the sense of, you will have larger corporates. By company ownership, we're a corporate agent, but we're relatively small compared to the big corporates. So we fall in line with probably some of the bigger regional businesses. But below us, you've got smaller regional firms. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. You've got the independent estate agents. You've got self-employed model where they're running around, on cheap fees, maybe in some places, not all. So we're probably fighting a few more different characteristics in competition. I think in high-end market, and please correct me if you've got a different view, but they're generally more aligned. They're going to take a good fee. They're going to offer a good service. So that probably comes with different challenges there, I would imagine.
Yeah, but like you said, the clientele are more expecting it. So I always have this line, and I'll say I'm 2.5. And some of them, like I've got one client on the market right now, his exact words were, "That doesn't seem high for what you offer." And I was like, oh, if everybody was like you, great. So, that's a 2.5% fee. And then I get other people, you can see the eyes bulge out of their head when you say 2.5. And they're like, oh, the other guy's 1%. I'm like, okay, what would you like me to remove from my marketing? No, nothing. Okay, but do that person do this? Well, no, that's why I like you. Okay, so can you see why I'm not the same? And one phrase I use is I'll always look at their cars in the front, because there's always something nice, whether it's a Ferrari or a 6-figure Defender or whatever. And I'll go, that Defender, did you buy it at the Honda garage? And they'll go, no. I'm like, okay, well, I'm the Land Rover, they're the Honda, so, but many times, and most times, they expect to pay more, because that's the clientele they are. They pay for nice things. They like nice holidays. They want value and they want service. And people remember how you make them feel.
Well, their favourite restaurants are very rarely McDonald's, right?
No, exactly. So you can have a great result. So let's go back to the service and the feeling side. You can have a fantastic result, sell it for £10,000 more than asking. But if you were not available for your client, made them extremely stressful, was rude with them, didn't have time for them, every time they called, it felt like it was a chore to speak to them, they will not be telling their friends, oh, they got me 10 grand more. They'll be saying, what a dick. I don't want to work with him anymore. It's how you make people feel. So that's why we say that the service implemented with other things is so important. It's the experience of all of that. And because in our country, it takes so long to get to completion, they really need to like and trust you, because you become that kind of support, that therapist, that everything to them.
Do you think that fees could go up in the more volume market?
Yes. And I think they have to.
Do you think they've started?
It's just not sustainable at like 0.75% or whatever.
Thankfully, we're not in that world, but there are some there.
That's what I mean,
You're absolutely right.
It's not sustainable.
So no, I don't think those fees are, and I think the cost of tech will increase. I think we'll see that. It's the ones that invest in that, and then we're going to have to pay probably bigger sums of money to what we've been used to.
Yeah.
So if you can't afford to invest into that, that's going to just naturally make you fall further down the path. And that in itself is probably one of a number of drivers to increase fee. I'm all for the regulation part. I'm all for that fee being quite reasonable, because again, it will take away people that are playing at it, take away the 0.75%. It means people have to charge a certain fee. I don't think fees should be mandated. I don't think we should get to a point where the government are setting what an estate agent can sell a fee for. But we should get to a point where the barrier to entry is high enough that you can't just open.
I was talking to somebody who's very well known in the industry. They've got quite a few opinions. One of them was that there should be a third model across the industry. I'd love to see a third of the fee paid up front, a third upon sale being agreed, and a third on completion. I think we'd all love a bit of that, wouldn't we?
Yeah, because we are the only industry where you really think that you could go 6 months, 8 months, a year, like
nothing,
and you didn't get paid. I had one a year and a half. It was the worst divorce I've ever seen. They wouldn't agree. I had multiple offers, finally agreed it, and then he refused to pay the bills because she cheated. So that then it went to the bank. The bank took it. And after a year and a half, it was a repossession.
Yeah.
And I had to, the buyer had strung on for like 8 months. I had her crying on the phone, him complaining on the phone, and I didn't get paid a penny. And you go like, I know it's part of the game, but God, that is soul crushing.
For what you deliver as an experience. And I believe that would be the case with yourself and your group and all of the effort that the public, I don't think, always know.
No, they don't see it.
What is the experience from our side? What are we going through behind the scenes to actually get the lights on, find the staff, train the staff, give them the systems, the processes, the tools to go out there and do the job. Then we're talking about tech. Then we're talking about marketing. Then there's more national insurance. Then there's all of the other stuff that comes with it. Yet we say to people, you don't pay us until the end.
That's what I mean.
And then you attract the people that come to the market where they just get their big toe and just dip it in the water and think, well, it's at no cost, is it? I'll see how it goes. I'll waste your time on a Saturday or the buyer's time on a Saturday or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's a whole new rethink's needed.
I think we're all in agreement if I say that a big problem of the fees and all that is the client understanding and the education that goes to them.
Educate.
Because the amount of people that I've spoken to and they go, oh, God, your job's so easy. Like, I'm not paying more than 1%. Not to me, but, I've heard it where they're talking, they have a £300,000 house and it's not for me, but I know them. And they're like, I'm not paying the agent more than 1%. I'm like, do you understand what they do for your house?
Yeah.
So I think it's the misunderstanding, the lack of education of what we actually do. People think we open doors.
And this is back to that. We're not good at illustrating it.
Yeah.
And we've got to find a way. I mean, you look at, you talk about 0.75% on a average property, call it £300,000. You're not earning a lot of money. And when you run 12 months, 18 months, and even if it does complete and you work out the average hourly amount you've earned.
Go work at McDonald's.
You are in that game. And I think that gets forgotten a lot because people are just chasing a KPI and not actually thinking, well, okay, I've just spent 2,000 hours.
And
this one's hard enough, Matt. I think the second one will be a little while yet.
I was going to talk about pricing because we talked fees, and I've had a lot of guests on the show, and we haven't really dug into the nitty gritty on some of these things. What are your thoughts on pricing? I had Charlie Landing on the show. You know Charlie?
I do.
You know Charlie?
I've heard his view on this.
That I know of.
Okay. He thinks you shouldn't be talking about price on a valuation or a marketing appointment. Everyone's got different words. He thinks it's about process.
Yes and no. I will never, ever give a specific price. So I will never go and say, your home is worth 1.1. Because then they have that in their head. And if it goes under, it's like, oh, Marie, you said. So I will always give, a kind of a 1 to 1.1. It could land somewhere there, but the process is more important to get you the highest price. Yeah. And one of my lines is, we could all sit here today, take a guess at what it'll sell for, and I'll be wrong. So the important is not what an agent is going to tell you. I can come here and say, worth 1.3. Here you go. I just took the number out of the air. It's more important, how are we going to get to that? And I promise I'll get you the max value for your house. Whatever that price ends up being, I'll get you the max. And I leave it at that because you kind of need to, especially in our end, again, where some properties are so unique. I think it's easier, again, if you have 5 of the same houses on the same street and you can say, I'll get you between 330, 340, but you can't really be that specific in the high end.
Can that be controversial?
Yes, please.
Just imagine if we get to a point with regulation reform and the agent has to publish their valuation along with the evidence of why they've come to that conclusion. Because then that stops the vendor from saying, actually, let's just put it on for 500.
Isn't this part of this reform about transparency for estate agents?
Again, devil in
performance or something?
The performance, yeah. But if you've got a vendor, let's say, Matt, I value your house at £500,000, and that's transparent, okay? But you want to put it on at 550. Well, if you know that actually my valuation is transparent, why would you put it on for 550? Because every buyer's going to say, well, it's not worth it. So in some respects, that challenges. And I think the bit that's often forgotten here is some of the figures that go out to the market are driven by vendor expectation.
Oh, yeah. You can tell the estate agent, they're like, that's not an estate agent price, that's the vendor price.
What percentage would you say are driven by vendor valuations? Come on, let's be honest. Let's be honest for the audience. It's all estate agents listening anyway.
Yeah.
What percentage, and you can answer this as well if you're watching, what percentage is the vendor price versus the agent price?
I'm going to say, Matt, I don't know the teams that are dealing with this on a day-to-day, but I would say there's probably 10-20% that the vendor is heavily influencing.
Mine is 0. I walk away if they don't have...
Yeah, I know yours is.
Yeah.
But forget you for a second. Step into the industry. When you look out there on the market...
I'd say it's probably more than 20%, honestly.
I'm going higher.
I'm going higher. It would be...
I'm over 50%.
Yeah, I'd say 50 to 60, easy.
And the reason I say that is because it's around 50% that get listed that don't get sold.
Yeah, 51% Rightmove said last year.
So the only reason they're not sold has to be either marketing or price.
Yeah, or a mix of both. Yeah.
Which is the number one. The only reason is agent, right? It's not marketing and price because the agent dictates both.
Yeah.
They should be able to have the ability, the confidence to educate the client. It comes back down to value again. But when we're in the market that we're in, would you describe the market that we're in as a declining price market, a stable market, or a price increasing market in your areas?
I would say it's relatively flat, and I think it's gone from a market where people are expecting their house to go up to a market where they're happy to expect it to be relatively stable. And I think the market conditions influences the confidence in the agent to how they tackle those conversations. It's a lot easier to tackle that conversation when the market's going down because the press is all saying the market's going down. When you've got the media saying market's going absolutely berserk, very difficult to control that.
But you're going back to your agents. Do they price the house, or do the vendors price the house, or do they agree a price with the vendor, or do they just trust the process?
I would say in the main, we would absolutely provide a valuation, market appraisal. Market appraisal only. We'd provide a market appraisal. Look, the market appraisal is going to give a range. Back to your point, we can't say that property is worth £504,000. We can absolutely put it in the right marketplace, and we can advise on where we think that asking price should be.
Because estate agents over the years, I mean, I've seen it all, right? I've seen it all, where they'd sit with you, you're the vendor, and they'd be going 500, or they'll go, I think your house is worth about 500,000. Then they'd look at your reaction. If you look disappointed, they'd go, the lowest.
Yeah.
And then they would go, well, actually, you could go up to 550 and test the market. And then you'd look a bit happier and go, should we try it at 550?
Yeah, gauge the reaction.
Or if they said 500 and you looked delighted, they'd say, that's to test the market. That was the pricing. That's how you price a house in Estate Agency 101. I think Charlie's got something. And I think the process to finding the right buyer
who will dictate the highest price. Like, we can't guarantee it. We can't say. Have you
sold properties in all of your years for more than you expected?
Yeah.
For less than you've expected?
Yes, both.
Say?
Absolutely agree.
So we don't fucking know.
No.
Right?
And,
we are allowed to swear. I won't be an hour in. But we don't know.
Yeah.
What we do know, fact, is the best buyer whose needs are met by your property are the easiest and the best to negotiate the best price with. Our mission is to get you a process and introduce you to a process which will attract the best buyer to achieve that negotiation position.
Here is the steps.
Whether they're competing, open house, that kind of thing,
yeah.
Or whether we just attract them. But it's that conversation that needs to be had more. And then when you get John from Connells or Countrywide, or not to shame you guys, but someone that goes out there and they're told get it at whatever cost, and they're sat there on the sofa and saying to the vendor this ridiculous price. You and I, we're going to talk about the different price ranges.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what's sold, what's on the market, why they haven't sold, and then you're going to tell me what you think, right? Because at the end of the day, the price is dictated by buyer and their desire, and the seller and their willingness to be more open, especially when we're in a market, which I'm guessing, I feel like prices have declined. I think prices are, you could argue they're stable, but I think actually if you look at the net prices, I think there's more people being more flexible these days because they've just gradually educated themselves. I'm not sure estate agents have educated clients enough. And we now have data at our fingertips, stories on hand every single day, which clients just don't know about.
Absolutely. But I think clients also are aware of a lot more data today than they used to be.
Yeah.
Data will take you so far. It's the interpretation of the data that effectively comes to the results. So I don't think we're going to get to a world, and I've spoken to Charlie on his views, and it's great to have different opinions on it, but I don't think we're going to get to a world where the vendor sets the price and we talk about service, because the vendors will need to be guided. Otherwise, we're back to that 50% conversation of vendors dictating the price to be too high. We're still going to end up talking about price because no vendor, we don't want it on the market at £1 million. It should be 900.
Yeah.
You can't avoid, I don't think, the
conversation but like,
of price.
I've done some valuations where they go, the other agent said, let's say, I had a recent case last week, that my house, because he has planning to build a house, and fair enough that there's planning in place for a little 3-bed house. He said, the estate agent said it's worth 1.4. Like, okay. Did they show you any comparables for that? No, he just told me. I'm like, but he said, but they sell a lot in the area, so I trust him. I'm like, okay, here are 15 comparables and all the stats showing you that it's not worth more than 1.2. And they're like, yeah, but he said 1.4. I'm like, I've got it in front of you. He didn't show you anything.
And if they said to you, look, Marie, I want to use you. Can you try it for 1.4?
No, so I walk away. I've done it multiple times. And this is why I say mine is 0. Because
your boundaries are clear.
Yeah, if I only take a select few, I work with 4 or 5 vendors at once, then I have a waiting list. And if I know it's not going to sell, I'm using my resources, my time, my money, I'm not going to take it and I'll walk away. And I have told, multiple of them saying, look, I want to work with you and I think the house is great and we get along, but in realistic values. So if you're willing to go to offers over 1.2, then great, let's make a deal. If not, then I'll see you in 6 months.
So I think having clarity is powerful in any business, whichever size, volume, medium, and obviously self-employed. The biggest challenge I'm seeing with self-employed agents is that it is all about them. So they get 2 years in, 3 years in, and actually trying to build a business is the biggest hurdle. So you've made it about me. So clients want me. How do I then scale that? What's been your approach to that? Because I know you've hired 2 agents.
Yeah.
And, what's been your approach? Because I think that's something that people would want to know. Because I imagine a lot of self-employed agents out there have felt the pain of their personal name being the brand and then limiting its ability in their heads to.
It is hard, right? Because I'm very lucky. I don't door knock anymore. I don't need to because my listings come to me from word of mouth.
Did you do a lot of door knocking?
Oh God, yeah. I did so much door knocking and networking and videos online. My face was everywhere. And that's how I worked very hard for 4 or 5 years. And now I get to reap the benefits and I get to walk away from properties that don't align with me. And that's okay. But yes, trying to grow the brand with other people when people are calling for me, it can be quite difficult. So they need to create their own personal brand. They need to graph for a good 2-3 years to get their personal brand out there. And my job is to build the ByDesign brand in Northamptonshire, Oxfordshire, so we get more valuation requests, organically and stuff like that. Their job is to build their personal brand because I can't do that for them. And also I'm not always going to be here to keep the name having those reviews and all of that. They need to start doing that too so that the name continues with other people.
Yeah, Matt, I think it's a good question because we're in that stage where we've made an acquisition this year. We're looking to make more acquisitions. Now this is lettings market, but what's attracting to us in a lettings market is where the business owner isn't heavily involved in the business. Because when you acquire it, the owner won't stay around for very long.
Well, they've lost interest.
They've lost interest. They've taken their money.
They've got the money. They're running.
They are out of it. And I think that there is that question in the self-employed market, and I think there are a lot of positives with it. But they're building a business around them. To your point, what have they got to sell? And I think for me, looking at it, would I want to buy one? Probably not, because once that person goes, you haven't got yourself leading from the front, and you're the reason your business is so successful. And I guess the challenge in that world is how do you maintain that, but not
for the ones that I'd say that the successful ones are probably about 20. I'm going to do the 80-20 rule because it's easier, but I'd say out of 100 self-employed agents going to market, 20% probably overachieve. I'd say the majority don't. The challenges are still there in the corporate model and all models.
Choose your hard. It's hard everywhere.
But even for that 20%, what percentage can actually turn it into a valuable asset of a business? That's a real. I don't think not many have really scratched that itch or itched that scratch yet. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, the bit that fascinates me is just where you get in some places very, very successful self-employed agents and they're opening offices. I find that. I'm intrigued to see why.
Because they've proved they don't need it.
They have, or is there an element we talk about? People working next to each other and having that facility. I mean, if that facility is in the backyard, it might as well be in an office, and it gives you the advertising. Yeah. So I think that, and that's why I say I don't think the self-employed model, the way it is set today, is necessarily the future, and I don't think corporate agency is. I think there's a blend somewhere in the middle that the industry will work its way towards.
Interesting, eh? And we talked and touched on AI and stuff, but I wanted to ask about automation, because as a big business, automation is probably becoming more important.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think.
And same for you.
Yeah, in any walk of life, the more you can automate, I think the challenge here is automating something without taking away service.
Yeah, that
piece.
personal
Yeah,
touch.
that personal touch. Because otherwise, every business is the same. Almost what makes us different is the personalities in some respects. So I think automating is great. I mean, any process you can automate that is just a pretty standard process. Again, as an industry, we're far behind some of this. I mean,
what should be automated in your opinion?
I think there are appointment booking. As an industry,
people can just book their own appointments in.
Yeah, as long as it can be validated, because we've got the security aspect of someone just booking a valuation, inviting you around to an empty home. We've got to have one eye on that. So,
thought it might not.
I think that's good. Look, we had an experience not that long ago where a viewing was booked. Our staff member went out to the property, and it was a difficult circumstance. So I think just booking online, thankfully, all absolutely okay. But so just booking online without some form of qualification there, I think raises some concerns.
They've kind of got their appointment booked in. It's a good thing, but it needs to be followed up.
It's how we can validate that in a certain way. And I think, let's be fair, we're booking plane tickets a long time ago by just logging online. Cinema tickets. Yeah, we should be able to book a valuation. We should be able to book a viewing without relying necessarily on the human touch.
I agree. Come on then.
Yeah,
I say I agree. I don't actually, because we don't do it.
No, but again, it's different.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when I speak to, whether it's a vendor, a buyer, valuation, market appraisal, or a viewing, I'm like asking 10 questions, 15 questions, on the phone with them for 10 minutes. Why are you moving here? Do you have any family? Do you know the area? I'm really getting to know, because if they're like, so I have one house in particular in Shelton on the border. Yeah. And it is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, which is why my sellers bought it. It's great. You can have great parties, and you have 360 country views, unobstructed. And if somebody goes, I need to walk to a pub, that's a deal breaker. It's like, okay, do you realize there's nothing around, right? So I would rather bring less people in for viewings, but good people who I know that it's what they're looking for, than just tick the box, especially that some of my properties are quite far. They're an hour a piece.
One of the clients I mentor, he's got a Pembrokeshire luxury brand. And he said, honestly, during the season, you will just get people who just want a time waste.
Yeah, exactly.
They are literally there to waste your time. They just want to have a look around properties. And I was like, I didn't even think of that. Certainly in those areas where they're more holiday, seasonal orientated.
So in my view, I don't think anything mentioned here stops an automation. I think it's the journey that happens in between.
The start of it.
So to take your point, your closest pub is 8 miles away. That can be automated. That doesn't need to be a human voice that says that piece. It could be that you can set standards that this client will only accept someone that's proceedable. You can automate that. And
I don't know. There's just so much you get from conversation and digging in deep, and then and then something they don't know. Let's say they go, this. Did you know there's this just around the corner? Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
How do we get the balance?
But see, for me,
human empathy and automation.
So I don't need the automation because I only have 4 or 5 listings, right? So this is the difference. Your volume and self-employed is not. So I have the time to do this. But my sellers trust me to make sure that the people coming in their home, I know exactly. Like there are some people who I know who their agent said, or they said to me, their agent does not ask any questions. They just allow the viewing. And if they're interested, then they ask the questions. And I thought, my sellers would kill me. They would kill me if I didn't know what this position was, what the buyers were, where do they work, all of these things. They would absolutely lose it. So I guess it's
individual, isn't it? It's what kind of business are you running? What kind of experience are you delivering? And how to manage those things.
To touch on the experience, Matt, and they're all valid points, by the way, and it's how do you get a balance of this, but it's also how the consumer wants to interact. And I think what we're particularly seeing is people would like to speak less. It's not that we want to speak less, but the customer, if they can WhatsApp you, if they can email you, if there's a process through that where they don't have to speak to someone,
I do agree. But
we have got that. you've got a
you
different...
don't deserve to see the house. If you can't take a 5-minute phone call with me, then you don't deserve to see the house.
We've got very different marketplaces and probably very different clientele for that part. But I think, we've got a generation piece here coming through, and we see it in staff and the way staff want to operate. Yeah. And I sat there, and this was about 18 months ago, to a gentleman who I've got an awful lot of time for, a young lad, but I said, have you chased that client? And I'll drop him an email. Great. Well, do you want to pick the phone up? Well, I'll drop him an email, see if he responds.
They're scared of the phone.
Right. So that's driven by, we'd see that quite a lot in certain age groups. And I think there's a change in piece to how people want to communicate. And to your point, Matt, it's how you balance that up with the valuable information.
Because like for me, all of these calls that I'm doing with buyers, I know exactly what they're looking for. And then I get something off market and I'm like, that's for John. Yeah. So, I have an off-market one now.
When you're registering the buyers, are you
absolutely.
saying, look, the reason why I'm taking this amount of time is because I want to make sure it's right for you. And B, I might have something else that I've got to show you.
In the upper quartile of the market, a very big percentage sells off-market.
So,
I've got one now, and I had 10, 15 buyers on my phone, boom, sent a message to.
And you don't have the phone ringing, right? Like an office would.
No.
Or, that kind of volume distraction. And in a volume model, you've obviously got to sell more and use that time more effectively on that journey with the customer. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. That's a valid point, because it's how you control the noise. I refer to it as noise. It's not going to change our world, but you've got to manage that noise, and it's how you can siphon that away a little bit. And one of the things we did about 18 months ago is we took our valuation calls and put them into one place, because it meant that we would answer a very high percentage of those. It wouldn't get caught up in the noise.
Yeah.
And I guess in many respects, incredibly well. But that's me signing off my own homework slightly. So, but it has, in the sense, we're booking more valuations. We don't miss them. We will have a number of 20% of our calls in branch might hit an answer phone or be missed, because people are running around, they're dealing with customers. It's going to happen. Whereas this means we're answering all of it.
I think there is a place for automation more in the volume market, because you need, like you said, you want to do everything, but you can't do everything. For us in the luxury market, I think the sellers would be quite distraught if there was automation in that sense, because you're paying for that personal bespoke approach. So we use a lot of the automation in the background to help us, but then the customer facing is always customer facing. And even like market appraisals, sometimes on the phone for half an hour with them, because they're explaining their property and what they've done. And sometimes they've been there for 30 years. There's nothing online. How do I know what I'm going to see? So I think for us, there's quite a lot of benefit to having all that extra information. That's just why we do it.
Well, I used to say, I'm a great fan of the fact that you can win an instruction on the first call. So that first impression is so important. But it's balancing it all out, like you just said. Got a couple of quick fire questions for you, if that's okay. Yeah. So quick fire means quick answers, right? So I've done quick fire rounds on a few of these podcasts, and it's ended up being bloody long answers to quick fire questions. But what would you rather have, 100 happy clients or 10 raving fans?
For me, that's hard. They're both great, but probably the 10 raving fans who are, because happy clients, they're happy and they just usually stay that way. But raving clients are your cheerleaders. They're like, you need to use Marie. And so I've got some clients, they're like telling everybody about me, and I'm like, thank you, that's great. so I'd rather have that.
10 raving fans.
Yeah, I'd probably answer it in the same way. The 100 will give you short-term revenue. The 10 raving fans will give you long-term revenue.
Yeah. Good stuff. The biggest enemy of great service, because we've talked a lot about service, speed or complacency?
Complacency.
Why?
That impacts your speed. Complacency. I think we just need to be doing things more openly, transparently, all in the same way. I think we're all benefit from that.
No, I agree, because speed to market doesn't equate speed to sale or speed to completion. You get these agents who are like, okay, take the pictures, go. And then there's the house could have been painted. There's so many things, but then it would have delayed the house going on 2 weeks, so they don't want to do that. So there is some complacency, getting them legally ready, getting things done to the house that may improve its overall value, and then launching when it's right.
Nice. Who should own the client relationship? The brand or the agent?
I would say the agent. The brand creates the opportunity. The agent is the one that's converting. The relationship is with the agent.
Yeah.
In that moment in time, they might reconnect to the brand when they next need service.
Yeah. Yeah, because many of my clients, they don't care if I'm ByDesign or Fine & Country or, Savills. They're coming to me for me. So, yeah.
One word that defines the future of estate agency. Just one word. Go on, Marie.
Chaotic. With all these changes, God knows what's going to happen in November.
This country loves a bit of chaos and drama.
They do.
I'd say exciting.
Exciting versus chaotic. Well, it's been less than chaotic and really engaging. I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. It's lovely to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
For quite some time. And it's been brilliant to meet you as well, David. It's so great that you took 3.5 hours to get here.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure it's helped you with having some more great conversations along the way. And if you're watching, I just want to say a massive thank you. The views have been incredible of this show, well over 60,000 now just on YouTube and over 35,000 subscribers. It's just gone bananas. So I'm really, really grateful. But what I'd like you to do is just keep watching, keep sharing, message me about being a guest or message me with guests that you would love to see on the show and just continue your journey. This is about listening to people with different perspectives, different views, or actually like today, we've just got some interesting shared visions on the future and the current estate agency market. Keep watching Estate Agent Showdown. I'll see you on the other side.